Tragic story we first reported last week about a Lorain County man who died while having his teeth pulled.
We're now uncovering court documents revealing alarming new allegations about the surgeon who performed that procedure.
19 investigator Mike Mason broke this story. He has the new developments.
It's important to note this surgeon has not been charged with a crime. The Ohio State Dental Board has lodged claims against him, and this civil lawsuit names him, Case Western, and the student who they say was in the operating room the day this man died.
In the past couple of weeks, Dr. Faisal Qureshi's bio page on his company's website has changed. He's no longer listed as a program director at either Case Western Reserve University or University Hospitals. It's the latest development in a story 19 Investigates first began looking into this past June. This comes after a lawsuit was filed last year claiming Qureshi caused the death of 48-year-old Matthew Miller. Miller's wife filed the suit a year after his death. The suit alleges he died while Qureshi was extracting 3 of his teeth at his practice, the Visage Surgical Institute in Medina. It claims Qureshi pushed to have Miller's procedure done under general anesthesia. This past April, the Ohio State Dental Board issued Qureshi a letter notifying him of his right to a hearing. In it, the board claims Miller was morbidly obese and considered a high risk, which demanded he be cleared by a physician prior to surgery. But the board claims Qureshi didn't do that. It also alleges Qureshi assigned a research fellow with no license to act as his assistant. The lawsuit claims, at the time, that student attended dental school at Case Western. During surgery, the board claims Miller went into cardiac arrest, and Qureshi failed to administer reversal agents to counter the narcotics that he used to put him to sleep. Miller then stopped breathing and died. In court filings, Case denied Miller was under their care and therefore not at fault. After surgery, the board maintains Qureshi changed or allowed someone to change Miller's anesthesia records. 19 Investigates uncovered court documents showing this past June, Case notified Qureshi he would no longer be the program director over their oral and maxillofacial surgery residency program. By August of this year, records show both Case and university hospitals stopped allowing students to shadow Qureshi at his private practice. Another letter filed in court shows Case suspended Qureshi this past July as they launched an investigation into allegations he violated professional standards. Those allegations include concerns about his clinical judgment while allowing students to take part in patient care at his private office, even though they weren't licensed. And they had concerns he misused his position of authority with students and/or failed to provide them with appropriate guidance. In the letter, Case told Qureshi he wouldn't be allowed on campus until their initial investigation was complete.
The civil lawsuit is currently pending. The attorneys representing both Case Western and the student won't comment. The attorney representing Qureshi says it's important to note these allegations have not been proven. The dental board's hearing begins in a couple of weeks. We'll, of course, keep you posted. Mike Mason, 19 News.